All right, in today's video, we are going to talk about increasing versus decreasing on a graph, okay? And it's just increasing is where the graph is going up. So we've already talked about increasing and decreasing with exponential functions. It's where on the graph is your graph going up. So your y values are getting bigger when you're increasing, okay? And it's from left to right. That is the biggest key here, is that it is from left to right. Okay, just like you read a book is how you read math, okay? Now, decreasing is where the graph goes down from left to right, okay? So that's decreasing. Now, we are going to be looking at polynomial graphs. So in polynomial graphs, you'll be increasing and decreasing on the same graph, and you have to state them in intervals. And when you state them in intervals, we use parentheses, okay? We don't use any brackets in increasing and decreasing, because if you think about it, bracket means you stop. You stop at a bracket, okay? A parentheses means that you can keep going, okay? Like infinity. Remember, we don't bracket in an infinity. You have to parentheses in infinity, okay? Because infinity goes on forever. So basically, we're just going to look at a bunch of graphs, and we're going to determine if it's increasing or decreasing, okay? So we got a graph right here. I want to find the intervals in which it's increasing and decreasing. Now, we're going to use your x values. I should have wrote that too. Okay, we use x values in this. We do not worry about the y values. The only time you really worry about y values is when you are doing range. Okay, so it's x values only. Okay, x values only. So we go back to this, okay? So I want to do the intervals of increasing and decreasing. So yesterday we talked about different parts of the graph, like your x-intercepts, your y-intercepts, your maxes and your mins. Well, I want you to draw a conclusion when you look at this graph, okay? When you look at this graph, so you start left to right. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side. And when I highlight this left-hand side over here, if it lets me, it's not going to let me. Lets me draw. We'll take it. Okay. So let me get a highlighter-ish color. There we go. So when I highlight this color over here, if you look, I'm going up. And when I keep going up, so I'm increasing. What happens at this point right here? At that point right there, I stop increasing, don't I? Okay. So I've started increasing from negative infinities over here, right? So I started increasing from negative infinity, and where did I stop? I stopped at -3, okay? And then when I stopped at -3, I turned from increasing to what? To decreasing. And I decrease all the way to the next point. Now, what are these 2 points right here? Think about that, okay? So I started here at -3. So I started decreasing at -3, and I stopped at +1. Well, then what happens at 1? I turn around, and I start increasing again, and I'm increasing to positive infinity. So I also, we're going to use union, increase from 1 to positive infinity. Now, if you notice, where did your stuff turn? Where did it turn from increasing to decreasing? Well, here's one point, right? And what do we call this point? We call that point a max. And then we also turned right here. What do we call that? We call that a min. So not only are your max and mins called your relative extreme values, they're also called your turning points. They're where you turn from going increasing to decreasing, okay? So your max and mins actually are where your graph turns from increasing to decreasing, okay? All right, let's do some more. Okay, so let's come over here. This. All right, here's another one. Okay, so I want to state the intervals that I'm increasing and decreasing on. If I could get the screen to do what I want it to do. Here we go. All right, so I want to do increasing and decreasing. So you start from the left. Now, if you always start on the left and always end on the right, which is what you're supposed to do, you will always start with negative infinity most times, and you're going to end at positive infinity. Okay, you're looking at the x values, not the y values. So negative x values are over here, positive x values are over here, okay? All right, so left to right. I start with my pen, and I'm increasing, right? I'm increasing all the way to this first max, which is at -3. So far I've increased from negative infinity to -3, okay? So I'm at a max, so we know that's a turning point. So I'm going to switch, and I switch to decreasing. And I keep decreasing and get up till I get to 4. So I decreased from -3 to +4. And then what happened at +4? It's a minimum, so I turned and I went back up again. So I'm increasing also from 4 to positive infinity. Okay? All right. Let's do some more. Here we go. All right, so we're going to do increasing and decreasing again, okay? So if you look, this time, now it does not matter where your graph points up or down. You're always starting at negative infinity, and you're always ending at positive infinity, okay? So here, I'm coming in from negative infinity, and my graph's going down this time. So I'm decreasing first this time. So I'm decreasing from negative infinity to -1. Excuse me. All right, and that's a minimum value, so I know it's a turning point. So I turn around and I start increasing. So now I'm increasing from -1 to 2. And then that's another turning point. So I switch, and now I'm going down. And so then I start decreasing from 2 to positive infinity. Okay? Are you seeing the pattern? All right. Next one. Let's do this one. All right. So, why is it always so difficult for me to choose colors? Okay. So, this one. You still start with negative infinity and you still end at positive infinity, no matter how your graph's pointing, okay? All right, so I come in from the left and I'm decreasing. I'm decreasing all the way to -3. So this graph starts decreasing from negative infinity to -3. And then I hit a minimum. That's an extreme value, so I did a turning point. So then I start going whoosh, start going up. And I'm going up, up, up to 0, okay? So that's an increase. So then I started increasing from -3 to 0. Then at that point, I do a turnaround and I start decreasing, but I only decrease a little bit, and I decrease from 0 to 1. So we do union, 0 to 1. And then I turn around again and I'm going to start increasing again. And I increase from 1 to positive infinity. Okay? All right. Let's do some more. Here we go. All right. So this one, I'm probably going to stick with the same color because my brain's hurting from choosing colors. Oh, I hope y'all laugh with me at home. All right. So this one, okay. Remember, I hate it when I do that. Let's erase that. Okay. So remember, you always start at negative infinity and you always end at positive infinity, okay? All right. So if you look at this graph, it starts decreasing. And it decreases all the way to -2. So I decrease from negative infinity to -2. Well then, if you look, I'm going to have to switch colors. It's in my soul to switch colors. So if you look, now I start increasing all the way to -1. So now I'm increasing from -2 to -1. Okay? Let's make this an ECU graph. Then I start decreasing again from -1 to 0. So we put a union, -1 to 0. And then I'm going to turn around and increase again. And I increase from 0 to positive infinity. Do you see that if you read it left to right and you just right as you come. You see how the intervals connect? Like I decreased to -2. Okay, let me get a color so you can see where I'm pointing. So if you see, I started and I decreased to -2. Well, the increasing picked up at -1, and then it ended at -1. I mean, picked up at -2. See where it ended? It picked up. It ended at -1. This one picked up at -1. This one ended at 0. And this one picked up. You shouldn't have any holes in your increasing and decreasing, okay? Like you should cover the whole graph when you're doing increasing and decreasing, okay? All right, I like to see patterns and things, so I like to show you the patterns. That's why I love math so much. All right, so this one, okay? Now this one, I want to do this one definitely because it doesn't give you your points. You got to read the graph, okay? So you still start at -infinity and you still end at +infinity, okay? So this graph starts decreasing, and it's decreasing all the way to the first min, and this first min, read the graph, is at -1. So I'm decreasing from -infinity to -1. All right, then my graph picks up and it starts increasing and it stops here, which is at 0. So I start increasing from -1 to 0. Okay? Then I do a turnabout and I start decreasing again. And I stop here, which is at the point 1. So union, I decrease from 0 to 1. Okay? And then I pick up and I turn around and I start increasing again from 1 to +infinity. Okay? You're getting those x values. We are not worrying about y values. The only time you really worry about y values is range and y-intercept. Okay? In this class. All right. Let's see, is there another one? All right. All right, so that is it on these examples for increasing and decreasing, and then I'm going to make another video that shows you how to do delta math so you get your parentheses and all that stuff right. I want to make sure that you're not messing up on delta math because of some technology and symbol issues, okay? All right, guys.